Wyoming Senator Cynthia Lummis says she spends in dollars and saves in Bitcoin. Swan CEO Corey Clipson says it's largely irrelevant what retailers accept in payment. And of course, Michael Saylor says, well, we all know that one, but are they right or wrong? Well, yes and no, because money is many things to many people. But there's one major concept about money in Bitcoin specifically that our favorite influencers are just not talking about. And it's because they, whether intentional or not, can't get into the shoes of a particular economic participant. Now, can you guess what it is? Well, let me tell you. It's Ser Ulric and Are You Down with the Underground? And I'm just gonna say it. Miss me with the 4D chess narrative. If Saylor gotta filter his conversation to not threaten the dollar, why does Jack Dorsey, who owns Square, an actual payment processing platform and also a multi-billionaire himself, isn't afraid of the deep state coming for him? He still has his wealth, getting wealthier, has a chunk of corn himself, companies under his ownership, and yet still, he states the obvious, Bitcoin is money. So it's funny if the Bitcoin is a capital asset narrative is really a psyop on you. Not only did you fall for that, but also the cover story that is 4D chess. Huh. And I thought Bitcoiners see through the noise. Going soft during the bull market? Senator Lummis is an interesting one too. She's teased all y'all for a year now about a strategic Bitcoin reserve. And no, we're not talking about converting the US Marshals Bitcoin to the Treasury. We're talking about the action that would cause the US to pump your bags and buy Bitcoin at whatever the cost until they reach some predetermined threshold. Have any of y'all heard of the professional concept under promise, over deliver? I guess they don't teach that in public policy training. First, she says, buy 1 million Bitcoin in Nashville 2024. Then she steps away from that in favor of the reprice of $42 gold certificates post-election, the ones that are owned by the Fed. Then she circles back to 1 million Bitcoin again at the Vegas conference. I'm starting to think she's playing y'all like a fiddle. But you know what she doesn't talk about is Bitcoin as a real functioning alternative monetary network. Lummis came up with the catchphrase, spend in dollars, save in Bitcoin. Cute. She's been saying this as early as 2022 with Dennis Porter quoting her in this tweet. And she began to reiterate it this year on TV and at conference appearances. I know, you're gonna say, bro, lay off, she's a senator. She can't say the dollar should be replaced.
Hold that thought.
The senator quoted a report about her saying Lummis forcefully made the case that Bitcoin not only provides a legitimate alternative store of value and medium of exchange, but would act as a check on the devaluation of the US dollar and other currencies through the runaway creation of fiat money. Look at this rogue senator in 2021 saying edgy things like medium of exchange. OMG, she's gonna get Hillaried. Epstein didn't kill himself. John McAfee was sending us a message. No one cares. She's still a senator. TikTok next block. No grand 4D chess conspiracy. Just another manipulative politician that has found a sturdy bandwagon in Bitcoin to ride to greater influence. Now then, Corey Clipson, CEO of Swan, has decided to chime in recently. His company made this post to give their 2 cents on the MOE-SOV debate. But just like the politicians, this company and Corey are professionals at splitting hairs. After all, it's not profitable to be on the losing side. Now, I can really vibe with this diagram that simplifies the pattern of Bitcoin maturity and adoption. It's a popular one that many people have referenced, and I used it a lot during my time writing essays and making videos for Swan. One can even say Bitcoin was a collectible pre-2017 before the Bcashers got shaken out. Now here, Corey says, most people don't spend Bitcoin till they have nothing else to spend. That's why the medium of exchange adoption curve lags the store of value adoption curve. Good job 2021, Corey. Bitcoin was flying high at the time of this post, just 9 days after an all-time high that wouldn't be seen for another 2.5 years. But what's this new 2025 Corey we see under a Tim Draper post? Tim says the dollar is going extinct. People will rush to spend it as it's losing value. Retailers will soon prefer Bitcoin, and when they do, that's when people will start spending Bitcoin. Corey responds saying it's largely irrelevant what retailers prefer to accept in payment. payment solutions abstract away the currency conversion. What matters is what money the purchaser stores value in and what money the merchant stores value in. Remember what I said about splitting hairs. Look at this clever way to say everyone's right. Sprinkle a little subjectivity in there for safe measure. Hey, remember when people said Bitcoin is truth? That sounds absolute. Is it truth? Is everyone right? Well, at least for the latter, I don't think so. So let's briefly summarize how we interact with money. And look, I know I'm preaching to the choir for 90% of you, but stay with me, okay? So we use money to have the ability to store value, which is a representation of wealth. We use money to abstract or measure the cost of something. That's the unit of account. And by the way, if you ever wake up from a coma and everything is priced in Bitcoin, we won, and the world would be extremely different. We should talk about this in the future. And of course, we use money as a medium of exchange where we can give to vendors for their goods and services. Are we missing anything? Yes, we are. We're missing out on the relationship of the wage and salary earner to the business. Approximately 93.8% of the US workforce were wage and salary workers in April 2025. These people rely on money as a form of compensation as their most important way of engaging with the economy. But to me, this isn't much of a surprise that no one feels the need to revolutionize this link in the economic chain. And this one is immensely more important than any of the others. But before we talk about that, and we will, what is the root cause keeping this in-game use case suppressed? Why won't you hear your common Bitcoin influencer talk about this dynamic of money on a regular basis? Well, it's a multifaceted reason, but the primary reason is the incentive of the discrete sale. The people amplified on your socials that are waving the Bitcoin banner are salesmen, damn near all of them. Do they have a book to sell you, a website with a storefront, an exchange they represent? They want you to buy Bitcoin or a Bitcoin-oriented financial product from them, but they focus on a particular subset of you consumers. I'm not just picking on Swan. LinkedIn is saturated with guys looking to help high net worth people, family offices, and businesses onboard to a Bitcoin treasury or some sort of savings product. But those same people are also on Twitter. It's just they act differently. On Twitter, they're a pleb. One of you guys talk about lifting weights and eating meat and stacking sats. On LinkedIn, they're willing to do, say anything and everything to close that 8-figure account. Twitter is just there for clout farming. Think about these analogies: digital real estate, melting ice cube, and pristine capital. You've been groomed to make these concepts a part of your Bitcoin vernacular. And I'm not immune, myself included. But these ideas are for people that have a collection of properties, that have abundant savings, and live off their capital rather than their currency. I think you're recognizing it. The incentives of the popular salesman likely don't match your own. So the narrative around Bitcoin is massaged to support the goals of the popular salesman. And of course, Michael Saylor became so popular not because he bought more Bitcoin than anyone, because he was popular way before he had 200,000, 600,000 Bitcoin. That only happened over the last year. With his invigoration of concepts like digital real estate, like melting ice cube and pristine capital, he provided a framework for all the half-wit salesmen that didn't know how to contextualize Bitcoin for their rich, juicy leads. Saylor is popular because he helps convert sales. But it's up to you, the pleb bystander, to understand that these almost famous Bitcoin salesmen, or those that provide a YouTube platform for the salesman, don't really care about real Bitcoin adoption. And that's okay. We all have our incentives. We all have bills to pay. But the only person with misallocated feelings about it is you. It's okay to be critical and not be party to salesy propaganda. It's okay not to retweet cultish Bitcoin stuff because of the communist utilitarian concept of net positive. Once you can break the umbilical cord from the alleged Bitcoin community, you realize pervasive real adoption is just not on the menu for your heroes. And it's actually happening far away from the talking heads that rule your algorithm. But I digress. I call this concept form of compensation. And look, I'm no highly regarded PhD in economics, and it's probably a derivative or subcase of medium exchange anyways. However, the one thing lost is that regular people interact with their paycheck more than anything. Injecting a passive way for regular people to accumulate Bitcoin, like Bitcoin for payroll, is the only step that matters to bring the fiat money experiment to its knees. Look, do I really need to tell you that personal savings is drying up for people? And for some, the act of saving in and of itself is a pipe dream. In that case, what's the point of Bitcoin as a store of value when there's no value to be stored? But Bitcoin in the form of a full or partial paycheck is the chance for the common man to save themselves. Bitcoin being distributed to the masses so to truly maximize its use, where truly anyone can experience the increase in value, and all can participate in the inevitable obsolescence of the fiat experiment. How is this not the real playbook? And look, maybe normies are too normy to self-custody properly, but they have no incentive to learn if they don't have a bit for themselves. It's called skin in the game. And it's gotta mean more than that one weird guy distracting the waitress with a lightning tip thinking she'll get more than 20% if she's just friendly. How many grandparents learn to finally use email or smartphone? How many non-tech people are getting accustomed to AI? You see this trend, right? There's a clear incentive to put these tools in the hands of everyone, not just family investment offices. Why? Because the owners of the tool become wealthier the more people are using it. Look, an example. I live in LA County, Beach City's nice area, and there are these fancy pants grocery stores called Erewhon. And it's kind of like an extreme version of what Whole Foods was like 30 years ago, decades before Amazon bought it and butchered it. And its consumer base is vegan trust fund young adults whose chief value index is how many celebrities they're friends with. This grocery chain sells a soda called Nixie. Now, you know what they don't sell? Coca-Cola. But you know where Coca-Cola is sold? Everywhere else. One product is a boutique offering, the other product you couldn't avoid if you tried. These are the two potential destinies for Bitcoin. If effort's not made to place Bitcoin in the monetary supply of the largest demographic, the labor class, Bitcoin could potentially be suppressed for decades. Ironic that the wealthy elite who are adopting Bitcoin this cycle would enjoy the fruits of Bitcoin now, continue to benefit from the slow unwinding of the fiat theft system, and front run the common man who have been psyoped the whole time to think it's just a game for rich people. How do we make Bitcoin to be like Coca-Cola? Again, people work out their own incentives. Start a SPAC and buy Bitcoin with other people's money. Go ahead. But why are a bunch of cheerleaders regulars? Nobody's on Twitter acting like this is the answer to all the world's problems. We've lowered our expectations. We've softened ourselves because our algorithm overlords are soft and we mirror them. There's Bitcoin and there are IOUs. And you know what the mystery blonde said about that guy we never saw on the airplane?
That motherfucker back there is not real.
Now you may say about the losers here, it's their fault. People fell for the scheme not to buy Bitcoin and instead watched on the sidelines or bought these financial engineering hype funds. But you were all complicit with the Bitcoin influencers that y'all love, cheering, liking, retweeting, and they came through purporting to be Bitcoin maxis. And all they did was create or assist in creating a dozen plus Bitcoin treasury companies, literally using other people's money to buy Bitcoin for themselves. Self-custody all of a sudden is no longer important. Hell, buying Bitcoin on Coinbase is arguably a better place to be for financial sovereignty than any of these products. But these heroes, and you know who they are. Suit coiners? I guess, but I wear suits. I like suits. Scammers? Everyone's a scammer. No, you fell for the net positive gimmick and sold your foundations to cheer a fiat shill in Bitcoin clothing. Guys, there is no orange party. There is no Bitcoin team. Guard your heart, choose your allies wisely.